Good morning. Well, how excited are we to be back in person for our first Good Morning Hudson in a really long time. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mary Claire Olson-Potter, President of the Hudson Chamber, and we are so thrilled to welcome you to this event. We are so excited to welcome our guest speaker today, Coach Ben Johnson. Coach Johnson receives a lot of requests to speak, so he is here today as a huge favor to his dad, Hal Johnson. So I was talking about a Gopher game that I had recently been to, and I was at a recent meeting with John Knutson. And John said, well, we're collaborating with his parents on a fundraising project at St. Pat's Church. I said, oh no, we got to get the coach over here to speak, John. So you need to call Hal, and you need to get him to speak. I think I maybe asked you a couple times. Okay. Okay. Well, it was a lot. And then I was at another meeting talking about the Gopher game, and Joel from Midwest One Bank said, well, his parents are helping us at our church do a fundraising event. I said, well, you need to reach out to Hal. So a huge thank you for Coach Johnson for being here today. Unfortunately, I had a lovely conversation with your parents, and they were so disappointed that they couldn't join us today. But I do need to share how proud they are of you and how excited they are to be back in the barn watching you coach. So we talked about where their seats are, and my father is a graduate from the University of Minnesota. So my brother and sister and I were fortunate as young kids to be able to go for basketball games, and so took Dad to many a game. And so when we talked about where our seats are, and Hal and Katie's seats are, they're kind of off in the corner a little bit because they're giving him some space to coach. I said, oh no, we're right behind the bench. We're in section 105, row 13. So Coach, if you need anything at all, you just look back and, right? Yeah, okay. You'll do that, won't you? How many of you have been to the barn for a game? All right. How many need to get to the barn to the game? Right? There is no better place in the Big Ten to go watch a game than at the barn. So I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I am a huge Gopher basketball fan. I don't know if that's come through or not. So before we get started and hear from the coach, I want to recognize a couple sponsors. Our sponsor for today, Midwest One. For more than 80 years, Midwest One Bank has been helping customers and communities succeed. As a community bank, Midwest One believes the positive actions each of us contribute to the success of all of us. And they are proud to sponsor today's program. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause for Midwest One as we stand and recognize. Yeah. Thank you. So you too could be a sponsor of an upcoming program. So I know you're all interested in that, so please see me after today's event. I want to give a special thank you to Troy Byrne. They are our venue sponsor today for opening up this space. I know many of you are looking longingly out at the golf course today. You can see if there's some rounds available after our program. And a special thank you to Keys Cafe. Please don't check out the great dessert table back there, and that the entire cookie and the cupcake with the basketball and the M, even though John Knutson tried to turn it around and make it a W. But Coach and I said it's still the right colors, so anyway, but that's all edible, so please help yourself to that. And at this time, it's my extreme pleasure to introduce today's featured speaker. On March 22nd, 2021, Ben Johnson was named head coach of men's basketball at the University of Minnesota, becoming Minnesota's 18th head coach in program history. Coach Johnson, he graduated from the University of Minnesota in 2005 with a bachelor's degree in sociology and returned to his alma mater after spending 3 seasons at Xavier as an assistant coach. He previously served as assistant coach at Minnesota from 2013 to 2018 and was a 2-time captain during his playing career here at the Gophers. In his previous stint at Minnesota, Johnson helped recruit local standouts and current NBA athletes Daniel Oturu and Amir Coffey, who we watched in the playoffs this year, which was very fun, and was instrumental in recruiting and developing Jordan Murphy. How many of you remember Jordan Murphy, right? Murph, great player? Yes. He finished his career atop the Gopher record books in rebounds with over 1,300, free throws made over 460, Free throws attempted, 698, and second in scoring with over 1,800 points. So definitely a fan favorite and a great player. Coach Johnson's extensive knowledge of basketball, in addition to his background as a Minnesota native, makes him the perfect ambassador and head coach, not only for the sport of basketball, but for the University of Minnesota as well. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Coach Johnson.
Thank you. You guys hear me all right? I appreciate it. A little bit about me. I grew up in South Minneapolis. So, back in the early 90s, Clem Haskins was the coach at Minnesota at the time. Things were really rolling. And this was back when you didn't have like 1,000 basketball camps to go to. And so, if you were good, you went to the Clem Haskins basketball camp. And that's where, they obviously use it as kind of a recruiting tool. And we'd always go, there's a certain one at University of St. Thomas that was like the high potential camp. So you would have players like, Joel Prisbilla, who was a longtime NBA player, Khalid El-Amin, Jared Nunes, bunch of guys in my class. We had 7 that ended up going Division I in my class that would show up and play in this high potential camp. And that's kind of really where the juices started to flow in me about trying to become a Division I athlete. I'm out there, playing and talking to Vashawn Leonard and Randy Carter and all those guys. That's also where I met, for the first time, a man named Dave Thorson. So Dave Thorson was an assistant coach for Clem, and he was kind of the guy that would befriend the local talent, the local kids, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and would encourage us to keep coming back. And so I'll never forget, I think I was in 8th grade at the time, and you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do for high school. And I grew up, like I said, in South Minneapolis, and there was a traveling program out of a Washburn High School, which is located in South Minneapolis, that we all played in from like 4th grade on. So we're trying to figure out, all right, where do you go to high school? Like, what's the next step? And, this was back when, people would still get and read the paper. And, I remember it was like a Sunday, and we have a Hall of Fame columnist named Sid Hartman, who would write a Sunday blurb all the time in a local Star Tribune paper. And in the blurb, he would names would be highlighted, and he'd give a brief info or talk about what was the purpose of the highlight. What did that person do? And I remember seeing, Dave Thorson, the name highlighted. I'm like, okay, I know this guy. And then I read, what was going on. And, Sid was reporting that Dave left the University of Minnesota and was going to become the new head coach at De La Salle High School. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. I now knew where I wanted to go to high school. I knew that this was a guy that I had a previous relationship with, a guy that I knew had been and developed Division I talent. It was going to be able to help me get to where I wanted to go. So went from, a 6th, 7th, 8th grader kid going to Clem Haskins camp to now going to De La Salle and playing for one of Clem's assistant coaches. And that's really where I first started to figure out, what this term culture is all about, that everybody now throws around. I don't care if you're in business or if you're in athletics, but, everybody uses the term culture. And that was when I really understood, for me, what culture was. And I think that's important. I think, because it's such a popular buzzword, some people will latch onto it and not be specific to them or who they are, especially if you're in a leadership position. And for me, being able to see, and understand from the ground up as a freshman on varsity, why we were good and what made us good and why we won. And everybody thinks it's about talent, and you definitely have to have talent. I don't care what level you're at or what you do. But you also have to have the right type of talent, and you have to have a locker room where that talent meshes. And why does that talent, mesh? And why do you play for the person next to you? All that stuff produces winning, and you're able to sustain it. And I think that's the ultimate goal. You talk about culture, you want to be a point where it's productive, where you can sustain a certain level of excellence in whatever it is that you do. And that's also where I found the love of I wanted to be able to coach and to teach. You see the impact that not only myself had, but all of my teammates, past, present, and future, that went to De La Salle had. In the winter times, we'd always go to Fargo and play in a Christmas tournament, and you would have the former players who were on break would come back to De La Salle and talk to the current players. And for me, that was always the coolest thing, because at that time, those were like the guys that we had kind of watched in 6th, 7th, 8th grade at the state tournament. Now they were Division I players. And so to have them and hear them come back and talk to us about, why they're successful, how they got that Division I scholarship, why they're, playing on TV or playing at this school or that school, and the impact that De La Salle and that program had on them, I think we all thought that was pretty cool. And we all wanted to be guys that eventually could come back and kind of pay it forward to the younger kids and to tell them, hey, if you handle your business academically, if you handle your business socially, if you bust your butt and give yourself a chance, that you can reach whatever level that is, Division I, Division II, Division III, and continue playing basketball. And all of that, honestly, was done because of the culture that Coach Thorson had developed, where everybody had that buy-in, everybody followed, whether it was former players, alumni from 40 years ago, they all paid attention to the De La Salle brand. And we were able to have really good success. And so, you take that, and I go on to college. And in college, because I knew I wanted to get into coaching, I really paid attention to, each coach that I played for. And I think you learn a lot, not only what is good, but also like what not to do, because you're in the locker room. And I told myself that I'd never forget that, right? And in years where we weren't very good, there's reasons why. And I think you learn so much more from sometimes your failures than you do your successes. And to look back on, okay, we didn't accomplish what we wanted to, and I knew here's the reasons why, because I was in that locker room. Okay, when I get a crack, this is what's important, right? That the people in the room matter. And it isn't about, again, a collection of talent. It's got to be the right talent that gets the head coach, that gets the school, that gets the league, that fits the league for it to work, especially when you're talking about, Big Ten basketball, which is at the highest level. And you're going night in, night out against players that are trying to make the NBA and realistically can. You're going against Hall of Fame coaches. You're going against, story programs. Every I's got to be dotted. Every T's got to be crossed. And so, I'm processing all of that. I was fortunate enough to be able to, when my playing career was done, I kind of was not forced, but a guy that recruited me had a GA, a grad assistant spot available at the University of Dayton. So I was planning on still playing, but he convinced me. He said, no, you got to do this. I got a spot for you. You're young. You don't have a lot of responsibilities. It's no money, but you gotta come do this. And it was literally like 163 every 2 weeks. But I say that to say those were like the funnest times. My GA year, and then I was fortunate enough after the first year as a GA to get a full-time Division I job at a school that's quote like a low major in the border of Texas and Mexico called University of Texas Pan Am. And those were the funnest times because you're able to make mistakes. Nobody cares. You're learning through it. Everybody in the athletic department was young. We're all trying to figure it out. And you're working for that next goal. And so, to be able to hit that ground running and be very fortunate to get a job right away, and to kind of start building that resume, with the end goal at some point, always trying to be in the position that I'm in right now, which is being a head coach. And so I just started pounding the pavement and went from Pan Am, then went to Northern Iowa for 4 years, worked for a great coach in Ben Jacobson, was able to make a Sweet 16 and beat Kansas in the NCAA tournament, won conference titles, conference tournament titles, was able to go to Nebraska for 10 miles, worked with him for a year. That was my first time being a full-time assistant in the Big Ten at the high major level, which was awesome. Was able to work for Richard Pitino for 5, and then at Xavier with Travis Steele for the last 3. And then it came down to getting this job, and it's interesting. Nobody thinks that, especially in this profession, your first job is going to be, in the Big Ten, especially in today's day. It just doesn't happen. And so first off, I know I'm extremely fortunate to be in the position that I am. I was actually interviewing for a job. I was at the low mid-level and was one or two. And I had heard that this Minnesota thing might end up opening. And I remember talking with my agent. I'm like, man, I said, I got a final interview at this other school on Sunday. If this Minnesota job opens on Monday, I'm going to be pissed. I didn't know. And at that time, I didn't even know if I could get in, but I just know me and being competitive. It's I'd rather almost take my chance at that and pass up a job, even though these jobs are incredibly hard to get. So the man above, somehow I didn't get the job that I thought I was getting. And so you're kind of down and you're thinking about, okay, why didn't I get this job? And then literally, probably a week later, I get a call from Mark Coyle talking about the Minnesota job. And I just remember going kind of through the process and trying to figure out, okay, for me to get this job, I got to have a unique angle. I can't go heads up with guys that have been head coaches for however many years, 5, 10, 15 years. They have a resume. And some of the guys that interviewed the jobs were probably more worthy of getting it based on their record than me. But my whole thing to them was about the culture piece. So, I knew the area that needed to be fixed. I knew the good and the bad. I knew exactly where the program was because I had just been there, 3 years ago. And I sold that to Mark, and my vision was about that culture because I think, if you can get that piece right, and that's off the court, that's academics, that's socially, that definitely impacts on the court, without a question, without a doubt. And so talking to him about, seeing it from every angle, right? Seeing it from a kid that watched it growing up to a kid that was recruited by the university to a kid that played there to now a young man that was assistant there for 5 years. Like I said, I've seen every angle. And I think right now with our program, what we're trying to do is, become that team like a Michigan State or a Purdue that, can sustain that level of success. And I firmly believe that does. It starts with the people in the room. It starts with recruiting. That's obviously the most important thing. You got to have the right players. You got to have good enough players. And that brings me to kind of what, I've been hit with it a lot, this whole culture of what it is right now in recruiting. You got the transfer portal. You've got NIL. You've got Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher going at it today about just that. But I think, for us in our program, everybody has the freedom to do and move how they want to move. Kentucky is a different deal. They're going to do what Kentucky does. I can't sit here and worry about how John Calipari is operating and doing his deal. That's a different entity. And again, he has the freedom to do that. But it goes back to the culture piece. I think the teams that will be successful in this new climate will be ones that don't get away from who they are. Because I do. And don't sell themselves for what they think can maybe be a quick fix or can be a big fish that helps you. Because what I've learned is, and as you guys know, it takes one or two mistakes or bad decisions that can ruin a really good group. And then vice versa, if you got a bunch of people that are overachievers, that obviously have the talent but are overachievers, sky's the limit. You can go through the roof. I firmly believe you gotta be willing to have people in your room that you can lose with, right? Because when you're winning, it's easy. Everything's easy when you're winning. Everybody loves you. You don't make bad decisions. Every player's excited to come to practice. Every player's excited about the games. There's no adversity. But adversity is gonna come, right, in different forms. And it comes every day in life, and it comes every day in a game. And to be able to handle that, right, you have to have people that you're willing to lose with, because when you do lose or when adversity does hit, they're going to be able to respond the right way. And so now it's our challenge for myself and my staff to kind of navigate this new time that we're in, because it's not changing. It's not going anywhere. It's probably going to get more competitive unless there's rules or somebody steps in place. and it kind of is what it is, but you have to be able to adjust. I think that's the second piece is, as a coach or a leader, you have to adjust with the times. And again, I'm for being a quote-unquote younger guy, I'm probably more old school than some guys, but at the same time, I know you can't be stubborn and old school at the same time and think that it's going to work. I think the kids now today, they think different. Parents and families think different, right? Their decisions are based off different things. It's not, I can't coach guys like I was coached even in the early 2000s. Like, it's not going to work. So being able to adjust, again, and especially in this climate, and being able to maneuver, I think is huge. So when you read about, NIL, which I'm sure everybody has, the thing about it is, as a coach, we can't, we're not out there doctoring deals. So that's the first thing. So when you read about it, like myself, Nick Saban, Matt, whoever, we can't go out in the community and lobby for money and ask money or say, hey, I want to recruit this kid. I need X amount of dollars. If you can give us this, then we can get them and we're going to have a really good team, right? It all has to be originally based off of that player's name, image, and likeness. So, we have a student athlete, Parker Fox, who has a great social media following. Well, he's been able to make money because of the brand he's created off his social media. And so, it's not $600,000, it's not, $200,000, but he's able to make that extra money, which we all want him to be able to do, and every one of our players, but all of that is solely based off of the brand that he's created. And that's why I would encourage, if you're a parent with a high school or any age group nowadays, that social media presence is so real. And I know from hiring a staff, that's like the first thing I look at is Twitter, Instagram, all that, Snapchat, everything you can think of, because people will tell you who they are without even having to say anything. And I think I've seen so many people, and it's adults, you guys have seen it, times change. And Mark Cuban, regardless of what you think of him, I think is really smart on a lot of fronts. And he talked about, in this podcast I was listening to, how you should never have social media that dates back to 30 days. And his point was, if we all looked at what we posted in 2012, now, does it apply? And the answer is probably no, because everything's changing. What you could say or do in 2012, you'll get fired for doing any of that stuff now, right? Like, you have no shot. And you'll see it like on draft day, whether it's football or NBA, there'll be some guy that gets drafted in the second round. Well, somebody has searched the internet already and found a tweet or a post that they had crushing, whoever, Paul Pierce, and then this kid gets drafted by Boston, right? Now he's got to go in that locker room, all of that stuff. So, I remind our guys all the time, and for any young person, your brand is so important, and you don't have to be in the limelight to have a brand. We all have a brand, right? And people watch way more than you think sometimes. And a lot of people want to chop whoever it is down. So if you can protect your brand, that's everything. And again, I think now with this whole NIL deal, if nothing, hopefully it teaches the young people to, you have to value yourself. If you want to be successful or move up or obtain a big NIL deal or do whatever, you've got to operate like that. And if you don't operate that, then there are consequences, or you might not get what you want to get. So there's that piece. You probably hear a lot about collectives or heard that word, and what that's kind of now trending to is, so from the original NIL where you make money off your name, image, and likeness, now they've kind of brought in this collective, which basically means there's a third party outside of, say, football or even the athletic department that has come together to help get like a pool of money, and then coaches can distribute that pool of money. The scary part for me, and again, everybody does it differently, is now it goes back to the culture piece. You've got to, if you don't win your locker room, you're in trouble. Well, if that locker room is divided financially, and there's a couple guys that aren't happy about that, you can say, hey, this guy deserves as much as or more than this other guy's, but at the end of the day, if that messes up that locker room, I don't care how talented you are and you're battling that every day, like, you're never going to get to where you want to go. And so I know fans get really excited about, oh man, we've got this opportunity to improve our program. Well, each coach is going to do it different, and it's all their comfort level. But I do think we all need to understand there's a lot of consequences that could potentially come, especially when you're dealing with finances, right, in a locker room. And so, we're going to do it a certain way. Again, that's their right to operate. And what our programs try to do is work through the portal and try to fit our needs. Again, recruiting is the lifeblood of any program, and we'll continue to do it and attack it the right way and try to build and build and build. Last year we kind of put a team together probably in about a month and a half, which is abnormal. Just getting a job and trying to figure it out. I kept one kid from the year previous, so we're kind of a bunch of parts from all over. Had 6-year seniors, had a couple freshmen, had a couple transfers, but I think we were able to have a brand and get our fan base to understand what we're building because we had a locker room that was together. And I think they were together because we had like-minded people that understood the mission, that valued it, and wanted to play for the guy next to them. And so that's our goal, with all these moving parts, to continue to upgrade. You want to upgrade in everything you do, upgrading recruiting, upgrading talent, upgrading your roster, but without losing who you are and that culture, that brand, and that identity. And that's really important. So this year we've added some really good pieces that I'm excited about. I know my staff is. We have way more depth, and we're looking forward to really getting after it this summer and improving as a team. So I guess with that, if there's any questions, I know you probably guys would rather ask than have me talk. I'll open it up to any questions guys might have.
So as a proud Badger fan,
Yeah.
I will tell you that I myself, along with most Badger fans, I know really appreciate what you're doing at the University of Minnesota with what you say and how you say it, what you do and how you do it to improve that culture. So thank you for that. I look forward to the rivalry. My question is, it's obvious Wisconsin has gotten a number of great Minnesota players to play for the Badgers, and my question for you would be, what are you and your team doing to keep the best local kids at the U of M?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I think in recruiting, I can't recruit based off what Wisconsin's going to do, or who they like, or what Michigan State's going to do, or what Iowa's going to do. I have to recruit on our needs, and I tell our fans all the time, there's nobody that wants to win more than coaches and players. Coaches' lives and livelihood depend on it, and the players, that's why they come to whatever school they go to, because they want to have success. So we're going to do everything we can within moving our program and how we feel is in the right direction. And I can't, everybody wants me to take all these Minnesota guys, and I'd love to. We can't take everybody. We got to take the right ones. And when I was there as an assistant coach, and now as a head coach, I think we've done that. We've taken the right ones, meaning the ones that, fit our depth chart, fit our roster, ones that fit our style of play, that fit me as a coach. And I think if we can continue to take the right ones for us, we'll head in the right direction. And again, I think I would drive myself crazy if I'm always consumed with what other programs are doing. And I'm not going to recruit a kid if I don't think they fit because school X, Y, and Z does. That makes sense. Now, again, there's a lot of great talent in Minnesota. And that's the hard part. Again, you can't take them all. So there's going to be a kid here or there that goes somewhere and has success. That's the nature of it, right? But I feel like if we get the kids that we target right, then that stuff won't matter. Yeah.
Have you ever had a team or player that didn't want to buy into the culture or play for their teammates? How did you approach that situation with that team?
So I'll go back to when I got the job, I kept one player. I think it happens all the time because if you look at society now, it's all about individual stuff for the most part. A lot of it is, right? Whether it's this person didn't like my photo, I'm not getting enough retweets. I think it's the nature of what it is. So you got to know as a coach, there's going to be part of that, right? But I think it can't override or be so over the top that it's going to, down the road affect the team. And, honestly, this will be year 18. I'm just not dealing with it, to be honest. I've dealt with it in the past, and there's always that 1%. Like, there's only one LeBron James. And, like, you know, you don't want to admit it, but, like, if you're that talented, there's going to be a little bit of a leeway to a certain degree. But for the most part, I tell our guys all the time, like, nobody's that good, right, to act a certain way or to be disruptive where it's going to kill everything else you've got going. And so we're really selective. Like, when we recruit, you know, vibe and interaction and, like, getting face-to-face is really important to me because I want to feel how you feel and how you interact and what your body language is, because I think that says a lot. And there's enough players out there that I think are good enough where if I sense it, we just move on to the next guy, to be honest.
Kind of hit on this a couple times, but with the social media side of things and even buying into culture, but what is, like, the one intangible thing that you've noticed is the most common hitting point for you when you find success with a player that fits into your culture? Is there a certain intangible thing that you find with them that really is you find is the most common thing across the board with your team?
Yep. I think the biggest thing is being self-driven and being like I don't have to, like, jumpstart your competitive fire every day. I think if you're self-driven, I can deal with a lot of stuff. But if you're not a self-starter and you're not self-driven, I think you have a ceiling, and it's low, right? Especially at our level. Like, you know, there's a lot at stake at the Division I level, and there's a lot of people that put a lot of time into it. And I don't care how talented you are. If you come to work every day and you're just like either an energy vampire or you're never consistent with being competitive, then for me, I just think you got no shot. Again, you can win, but you can't win a Big Ten title. You can't make a Final Four. You know, you can't. If you tell me you want to be a pro, you can't be a pro, because all that little stuff matters, and I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what you look for in recruiting, honestly, because people don't change. If you think about it, I mean, there's a select few, but in my experience, people do not change. So whatever I see as a behavior or a talent when I'm recruiting, I can't expect all of a sudden now this kid to flip it and be a totally different way with me, right? So I got to either accept what I saw and say, you know what, I'm good with that, I can deal with that, or I got to say, you know what, it's too much for me, I'm not dealing with that, and I'm moving on. But if we can get a locker room full of people that are self-starters, that are, you know, competitive by nature, then I think you got a chance to get better because they'll work every day, right? And it'll be on their own. They're not going to do the minimum, right? They're not just going to do the 2-hour practice and the hour weights and then that's it. They're going to come back and get extra shots in, watch extra film, have that grit, have that fight, which is what you need.
First, proud Gopher alumni here. A lot of pressure on kids, our youth, and coaches. What is the U doing about mental health for your players and your coaches?
Yes.
Knowing that your job is 24 hours a day.
It is. No, it's something that we talk about. I talk about in recruiting. We have a recruiting pitch that centers around it. I talk about it to our guys all the time. You know, we have a team doctor, and she does a great job just dealing with that. And what I try to do is almost flip it. I think there's a lot of connotations, especially when dealing with men, about mental health and about being vulnerable to mental health or to having adversity that you're dealing with that's not like a physical thing that I can see or notice. And so, you know, I talk to our guys all the time about if you're not mentally right, again, it's hard to get to where we need to go as a team and you want to go as an individual. And I think for them to realize that, you know, your mind is so powerful, why not try to take advantage of that and get the most out of it? You know, when you're going through stuff, I think that's what people are resonate with mental health. When you're going through stuff, you know, I think all of us need a sounding board or somebody that can at least maybe get a different perspective or help get you through things, which we have. But I also want guys to use it as something when things are going good. Can you develop that mental side so that when adversity hits, you're able to almost stop it, or you know how to react towards it versus, oh man, it's hit and I just let it keep snowballing. Because then it's hard for everybody. When you just kind of put it in the back burner and it just starts snowballing, well, eventually we all break, right? So can we get to a point where we look at, you know, mental health for what it is, but then also say, okay, is there anything we can do to prevent it? Can we get ahead, right? If I have a student athlete that I know either dealt with a lot of stuff in high school, can we be proactive and deal with the mental and how strong it is up top with everything, not just in basketball, but, academically and, socially. I'm big on, if you can envision success and being successful, or envision having a good day, or envision being great academically, or whatever your weakness might be or your fear might be, if you can somehow flip that and teach your mind to not look at it as like almost a crazy negative or something you got to overcome, but something like a challenge, I think is huge. But we take it very serious. We got an open door policy because I think it's real. I know it's real, especially, when you talk about social media, because, I tell our guys, it's great to have, but when you're in the season, right, you could have a 1,500 likes. We all know you get that one comment that you read, it could mess your day up. And that's for everybody. I tell the guys, I'm the same way. Like, I have Twitter, right? And I joke with our media, I don't follow any of our media because I know I'm not any different than those guys. Yeah, if I follow whoever and they say 10 great things about me, but then the game we lose and I make a mistake coaching and I see that headline, it's gonna be in the back of my mind, right? So it's also being smart of like, how can we also help our guys maneuver in social media so that if there are triggers or there are things that they can avoid, or teach them the elephant in the room and how to maneuver through it, I think is better, and I'm all for it.
So there's a lot of draws on our time, whether it's at work or at home. How do you keep your focus on the culture that you're building and not backslide? And or if things do slide, how do you refocus?
That's a great question. It's the hardest thing, but it's an everyday. I've come to find it's an everyday process. And this is something I did learn, whether I was a player or coach. Sometimes you have, and I can say this now because I'm in a leadership position, right? You have leaders that you want to cover everything. So you walk in and there is 15 core values, right? There is no way that you can emphasize 15 core values. It's impossible. And so what ends up happening is the people you work for or your players, because you're not hitting on at least over half of those, they're not going to value any of that, right? And so now it's like, okay, you might hit on one or two, but it's randomly. So you end up having 15 core values that no one values and no one knows what you stand for because you're not repetitive with it. So what I try to do is keep it super simple. We use trust, integrity, competitiveness, and that's in recruiting and that's in our locker room. And literally, I can remember those and I can hit on them all the time so our guys know it, but then also they're true to me. I think that's the other thing. I said, with culture, if it's not what you believe, I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong way to do it, right? But if it's not what you believe, everyone senses that. And there's not passion towards it. And again, you're not going to be reminded. It's not going to be important to you. Well, if it's not important to you, it's definitely not going to be important to the people who are following whoever you are as the leader, right? So I had to make sure when I did my core values, like, okay, trust, what does that mean to me? And what's my definition of trust? Because my definition might be different than somebody else's. But if my definition of trust, integrity, competitiveness is something that I value, well, I know me as a person, I'm going to be on it all the time with that. Well, then conversely, my guys are going to be like that, right? So I think it's just trying to, you can't cover everything, right? You can't have all those values. But if you minimize it and they're important to you, you also, in times of doubt, because to me, that's what culture is. Like, you use culture in adversity in times of doubt. When stuff's not going well, like, what are you falling back on? And if you have a good culture, you have like 3 principles that can like get you back in line. Versus if you don't and you're swimming, well then now that's why it snowballs. So I think, having those 3 things, and if you value them, they're gonna mean so much to you that like you're not gonna break or fold. And you just gotta keep telling yourself that like, I took time to underline these 3 things, and I know in my heart if we get these right, it's going to take care of everything else and we're going to win or be successful. And I think that's important because it's going to happen. It happens to me, but like that's what I use to like, no, you're doing the right thing. This is what it is.
John talked about losing the Minnesota kids to Wisconsin. Can you tell them about Luke from Wisconsin?
Luke Lowy, Wisconsin player. Luke was great for us. Luke's actually a pro fisherman now. Believe it or not, he's going to be on like ESPN one day for the Bass Pro Tour. Seriously, he is. He's got like endorsement deals. It's I never heard of it, but like, yeah, apparently you can get like scholarships now for college to be a fisherman. But like Luke, he came from William and Mary, which is a mid-level program. And the thing I loved about Luke is like Luke was that warrior. And you could just tell talking to him on the phone that like it meant a lot. It meant a lot to him. He grew up in Big Ten country. He grew up watching it. The league mattered. Proving himself at this level mattered. And so there were a lot of things that like maybe some schools look past or didn't value as much. But to me, like those things, if you have that and you have a guy that's older and physically he's strong and competitive, that's why I think he was successful. And like I said, he'll run through a wall. And that's why I love him. So I wish we had him for another year, to be honest. But he did a great job of laying the foundation of what we're about and what our brand is. Like when you watch us play and you see the effort and the second effort that he gave and how I got a picture that I'm putting up in our facility of him at Michigan, like literally laying out and almost horizontal for a loose ball. And that's going to be in there because that's what we are. Right, and I can't thank those guys enough. Every kid we had for like setting the bar of who we are as a program, so that now when all the new guys come in, the returners they tell them, no, this is how we do things, right? And they just kind of fall in line. And I think that's the key. And then once you can get that, and then you can add some talent to that, then I think you got something.
We're with UW Stout. Can you talk about developing leaders?
Developing leaders, yeah. I think that's huge. I wouldn't be here if I think everybody has goals, but you have to have somebody that believes in what you want to do and who you want to be, right? Like I wouldn't be here if I didn't have people that believed in me, that like whether you're a captain and they vote you that, or whether you have the ability to be a coach and they encourage you to do that. So I think encouragement is everything, especially at a young age. So if you find you've got somebody, boy, girl, whoever, that you see something in somebody, to encourage them to explore that, because I think everybody needs that. Everybody needs to be told, hey, you're good at this. Have you explored it? Have you gone down this path? And I think with leaders especially, that's key, because as you know, like leadership's hard. Like everybody maybe wants to be one. But until you're really in that position where you got to make the hard decisions, you got to live with it, you got to handle the good and the bad, it can get tough. But if you know people that have that quality in them, I just think it's our job to always encourage that and to help mold that. Like Eric Curry, for instance. So Eric was a senior for me. I recruited Eric out of high school. Eric was out of Memphis, Tennessee, and Eric, from the first day I met him, just was an extrovert, has that personality that, I call him a connector. Everybody can connect to him, can relate to him. His energy, it transfers to everybody. So when I got the job, Eric had some injuries that he's dealt with his whole career. And I didn't think he was going to play. So I basically, what happened to me with Brian Gregory at Dayton, I did to Eric. And I said, you don't have a choice, you're going to be my GA. Because you need to get your master's and then you need to get into coaching. And so he was going to do that, and he actually worked out and worked in the office for like 2 weeks and then got the playing bug. But now Eric is in the last stage, knock on wood, with Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten. And he's up for a position. He's like a finalist to work every day in the Big Ten office with Kevin Warren. And I think, this is not tooting my own horn, but like if I had encouraged Eric to be a leader, to be a captain, to like and instilled in him like, this is who you are, dude. Like I don't know if he would have the confidence to say, hey, I want to go after this job working in the Big Ten office with Kevin Warren and get into the admin side. So I just think if you see something in somebody, I don't care what it is, that you encourage them to do it, because I think everybody needs that to a certain degree.
Back to recruiting again, I assume it's a 12-month-a-year job. During the course of the basketball season,
you're limited on your time commitment to your coaching and your recruiting. Could you speak about your style, being able to talk to kids on a one-to-one compared to being on the court practicing with them? Or do you have your assistants do that? How does that work?
When it comes to recruiting?
Yes.
Yeah, it is harder because, as an assistant, I've learned quickly, obviously, your recruiting is kind of your main responsibility. You have some team responsibilities, but once practice is over, you obviously do the film and stuff like that, but you're now focused on, maybe you have 2 or 3 core guys, and then you have your recruits. Whereas the head coach, it gets harder because once practice is over, you're still thinking team. And you're still, especially in season, I'm paid to win games, right? So now I'm consumed with, all right, how was practice? Did we get better? What's our game plan? Is it the right one? All right, what player do I need to touch? Who's good? Who's in the right mental state? Who's not? And then damn, I also got to recruit a little bit, right? So it gets harder with just trying to balance your time. So thankfully, with text now, it's not as personable, but you can always shoot a kid a text and they're always on their phone. They always have it. Half these kids don't have, great social skills, so don't know how to hold a conversation, so they'd rather text, right? So you do that, or you do a quick FaceTime that's 2 or 3 minutes that you get, kind of deliver your message. But it is harder. You just got to be good with your time, because the hardest thing, and I tell recruits this, is, okay, if your son comes, would you rather have me spending time with him or on the road trying to get other players? And most parents would say, well, I want to win. I want you to spend time with the team and get my son right. So that's what I try to do, is during the season, I owe it to those guys so much to make sure our team is good. And then, you just kind of juggle and figure out the recruiting piece. But that's why I also hire a good staff.
I remember Clem Haskins being in the stands for Sam Jacobson years ago, time and time again. And I assume you do the same thing, being at a kid's ball game, right?
Yeah, and I think it's obviously way easier with local stuff. We were able to we signed 3 in-state kids, and some of it was because I could drive 20 minutes or 30 minutes, to watch Pharrell Payne play after a practice, or I could negotiate practice time and go catch Braden Carrington play. So that is the advantage, and that's why I do think in Minnesota with the good players that we do have, is that I'm not driving 5 hours or getting on a flight all the time to recruit. You can get in the car and go 30, 40 minutes, and that's huge because, again, time is everything.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Coach, so much for being here today. As a huge Gopher fan, I don't know if any of you have picked up on that at all, but I do think that we will continue to have a great season, and I think a long ways down the road, you will remember this day where you heard Coach Johnson speak, and you will go, I was there when I heard him speak. And so thank you so much, because we know that you have a great road ahead of you. All right, a few housekeeping things. Thank you, Midwest One, so much for your sponsorship. Thank you to Troy Byrne, and thank you to Keys Cafe for the fabulous Minnesota desserts. And so we do have some swag. I'm wondering if the coach is willing to come up and help do some of that. So, Lauren, you have the basket of names. So we will kind of sprung this on the coach. But if you want to grab a name, and then we can read that name, and you can decide who gets what. And I'll be truthful, I did not put my name in. As much as I wanted to, I didn't. All right. All right, Coach, if you're ready, if you want to grab a name out of the basket, I can read that. Perfect. I didn't tell you about this part.
Got a couple names.
Yeah. Jamie Van Pelt? Yay, come on up. You get your...
Ben's large.
Ben's large. Is she getting this for you, Tom? All right, very good. He's giving... All right, there you go. Okay, Coach, we got another one. Are you having fun yet? Sarah Atkins. Yay, come on down and get your pick. What are you thinking, Coach? What? Yeah, there is. Do you like what Jamie got? All right. Janelle, yay for the resultants. Steve, these are fancy cards.
Thank you.
Very nice. All right. What do we have? 2 more? All right. Perfect. Lauren, Hudson Flower Shop, you are a winner. One more. Where are all the guys? All right, and our final. First, Tom Van Pelt. Yay! All right, thank you so much, Coach. Thank you, Lauren. All right, thank you all so much. Again, thank you to everyone for being here. A special thank you to Coach, and then we look forward to seeing you on the June 7th. Good morning, Hudson. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.